back to the Elder Law Out Loud podcast. I'm Carla Ray, here once again with CEO and founding attorney of Family First firm, Geoff Hoatson, and we are approaching the holiday season. I'm getting excited. We're finally starting to feel a little bit of coolness in the air in Florida. That's like relative compared to the rest of the country. But families are going to be gathering over these next few months, and this is a time of year that people really need to think about maybe having some, I don't want to say difficult conversations, but conversations that a lot of families don't have until it's too late.
Right.
We see that in our office all the time, where someone will come in and say, I don't even know where mom and dad's assets are. I know you have told me before that your parents have been pretty tight-lipped with you about it.
True.
Even.
Yep.
So how do you start this conversation at the Thanksgiving table this week?
So wait till everyone has a few drinks. Okay.
Start with wine.
Right. There you go. No, but in all honesty, they're topics that aren't always easy to bridge. And, lots of people do struggle with bringing up, hey, what happens? Do you have anything in place? But truly, I think it's a conversation that you bring up saying, hey, I saw something recently, and that made it talk about it. And instead of it being, hey, I'm worried about you, and you're getting older, and we need to talk about this, and, all of a sudden it can count the doom and gloom. If instead it's, I was just watching a podcast, and they were talking about, hey, as we're getting older, we need to make sure that things are protected and that there's a plan in place, regardless of what the future holds. That conversation is a little bit easier when it's like, I just heard about something. Maybe we, let's talk about that, rather than, hey, I've been thinking about this, and there's a serious thing that can start with. Mm-hmm. So I think having more of a topical reference makes it easier to start those conversations.
And it's not just the estate planning, which we will talk about in this episode, but just knowing where to find things. Mm-hmm. Where if your loved ones have a safety deposit box, how do I access that? Who has the key? Those sorts of questions. Do you have kind of a rundown in your mind of the different types of things that people should be aware of for their loved ones?
So definitely, some people like my family or my parents, I should say, are very just private, I guess, with those things. And that's fine. And I have never asked them to tell me whatever. I have said, hey, tell me where to look if something happens. Yeah. And I say if ultimately, nobody gets out of this life alive. And so when that time happens, so where do I need to go looking for this stuff? So, I think that's the most important thing, is not so much what there is, but where can I find it? To your point, is it in a safe? If so, where would I find a code to that safe? If it's in a safety deposit box, do I have power of attorney so that, I can go to the bank? Also, where would the key be? Because otherwise you have to go to court to get an order to drill the safety deposit box and open it up. So, understanding where to look for the things that you will need to then be able to start managing their affairs is really that most important first step.
I just have to laugh when I think about the safe, because my grandmother, she's been passed many years, but she used to have a safe, and I remember it so clearly, in a room in her home, and the combination to the safe was on a Post-it note next to the safe.
Wow.
She didn't want to forget where it was.
Sure.
As she was getting older. So I just have to laugh. So some people make it really easy and they put it right on the safe, and that's not the case for most families.
I mean, in that case, just don't close it.
Yeah. She lived alone for a long time. And so I think she wanted to make sure that, because my grandfather passed young, he was only 65.
Oh, that is young.
Yeah. So she wanted to make sure that there was somebody who could access those things if, God forbid, she wasn't able to do so. Yeah. So not every family is like that.
No.
So
Yeah.
Having a checklist of where things are,
yeah,
what accounts exist.
Yeah.
Maybe having conversations about beneficiaries this time of the year. A lot of companies allow you to make changes to some of your policies and documents. So something top of mind. I got a notice the other day that I apparently never named a beneficiary on my retirement account here. So something I need to do.
Yeah. Yes, you should. That is important. And I think it's good to know where everything is, but then that next step needs to be, well, how does that person actually get access to it? Mm-hmm. And those are the things like powers of attorney that will allow somebody to, have access, whether it's to a bank account, to retirement assets, or even safety deposit boxes at the bank. The ability to go access your assets, even to be managing them for you, if something happens.
Um, Obviously, there are certain things that you don't necessarily want to bring up at the dinner table at Thanksgiving, that would make it maybe an awkward family conversation. So, any advice that you give out to clients on how to start that beyond just, "Hey, I saw this podcast," or anything like that, because that might be something that they could brush off and say, "Oh, yeah, I don't want to talk about that."
That's where, I think if, don't want to use something topical, then it is treating like, hey, we need to talk about the future. And, they're all getting older. It's getting to a point now where, maybe we're concerned about what the next 10 or 20 years look like. And we know that the vast majority of people, before they pass away, end up needing help, whether that's in a care setting, it's help from powers of attorney to make legal or financial decisions on their behalf. And we just want to make sure that, should that happen to you guys, that you have something in place so that we can do that for you. Because if you don't, then you're going through an expensive and lengthy and onerous guardianship process. And nobody wants that. You can easily spend $10,000 in the first 2 months of a guardianship proceeding. It's incredibly expensive. And the problem is it's time consuming. You're needing to make decisions for a loved one. Instead, you're hiring lawyers to go in front of judges. And the worst part about it is it's not like that initial fee is all you pay, because every time you need to do anything for that person, you have to go back and petition the court to do it. The court is going to, have a hearing in a lot of cases. Sometimes they won't, sometimes they'll just sign an order, but regardless, your attorney is going to charge for all that time. And so that's just more and more money that's going to be coming out of your estate when, if you name a power of attorney, you can do that basically for free. Like I was actually talking with a gentleman yesterday who had hired us for Medicaid for him, and he wasn't sure who he wanted to name as his power of attorney when we started the conversation. And he said, well, maybe a judge will have to appoint that person. And I said, okay, yes, that's an option, but it's going to cost you substantial dollars to do that. Or because you'd hire us to get your Medicaid, we include all these advanced directives for free. So right now you can choose that person for free.
Yeah.
Or you can let a judge pick somebody.
A stranger.
Potentially, and charge it, and it's going to cost you a ton of money.
And not for nothing that we've seen that system go very bad in Florida in particular.
That's true.
I mean, people can Google and see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a system that you want to choose for yourself or your loved ones.
It is a last resort. It should be a last resort. And, it's really easy to avoid. All you have to do is do the slightest bit of pre-planning. Name some people that you want instead of letting, just ignoring it, sticking your head in the sand, and letting a judge make that decision after you've lost those abilities to make the decisions for yourself.
Yeah. Beyond the estate planning, I also think like this time of year, people are thinking about gifting. And we always run into issues when large gifts are made. If a person needs to then qualify for Medicaid,
that's right,
within the next 5 years. There are differences between the taxable amount you can gift to avoid paying a lot in taxes.
That's right.
Versus what Medicaid considers a gift. So can you explain the discrepancy there? Because I think a lot of people take advice from their CPA.
Yes.
Not realizing that there are other implications.
Absolutely. So what we see oftentimes is, right now the gift limit per year without having to file a gift tax return. So one of the biggest discussions about this whole gift tax thing is people think that people pay taxes on it. Believe it or not, nobody is. Since the one big beautiful, I shouldn't say nobody, the vast majority of people aren't. Basically, the way it works is that now under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was passed, each person can give away up to $15 million at death or during their death. And that's for a married couple, each of them gets $15 million. So now you're talking about a married couple has $30 million they could give away during their life or death.
And if any married couples out there want to give away $30 million, my address is, no, I'm just kidding.
It's worth a shot. But yeah, so
closed mouths don't get fed.
That's true. That's true. Like I said, it's worth a shot. Worth a shot. So yeah, you can give away that amount. The limit for gifting is $19,000 per year per person. So in theory, I've seen people and I've counseled clients on this when they're younger and Medicaid isn't really a likelihood in the near future. You and your spouse can each give $19,000 to a child, so that's 38. And if your child's married, you can also each give $19,000 to your child's spouse.
So now it's like 70.
So is it 19,000 per person?
Per person. So per person gifted
receiver
and recipient. Yeah. So both the gifter and the recipient.
Now people say, okay, what if you give more than that? What if kids, I need to give them $100,000 or just one child, $100,000. What happens then is you give that child $100,000 and now you've given $81,000 more than you're allowed. So what happens? Well, now you file a gift tax return. It's going to cost you $150 with your CTA. And what that gift tax return does is it tells the IRS that $15 million that you can give away during their life or death, that is now reduced by $81,000. So now instead of, I went to law school, not math school. So
it's into a lot of numbers.
It's 14 million and something, like 900 and something $1,000 that now you can give away. So it actually, nobody ends up paying the taxes on it. So a little bit of a detour. I know, and what you were asking me, which was, what's the difference between that and the Medicaid gifting limits? And so I just want to kind of be clear about that there, because that is a pretty common misconception that people have about.
Well, I think it's new now. I mean, with the Big Beautiful Bill Act, prior to this year, if you were giving away, you would pay taxes.
No,
on that, right?
So yeah, the limit just went down. Oh, so yeah, that's what it's called, the unified credit. And basically, it was, for years it was under $1 million, and then in the early 2000s it went up to $1 million, and then it slowly crept up, and then it went away, and then Obama and the Congress then brought it to $5 million. Then Trump doubled that his first go to $10 million, and that went upwards for inflation for a number of years, and then ultimately they moved all the way up to 15 in this year. So, but it's always been the same, that all it does is gifting in excess of the exclusion amount just reduces that unified credit.
Got it.
So, anyway. but the point here, and I guess talking about the Medicaid versus this gifting, is that Medicaid has a rule that says you can't give away assets within 5 years of applying for Medicaid. And so that's the big issue. So a lot of people may not know that Medicaid's on the horizon, so they gift money, and they don't know that they shouldn't have done that. Or maybe worse, they do know that maybe long-term care, and they say, I'm going to cheat the system. And that has a negative connotation. They're trying to, get ahead of it.
Trying to spend down with their family rather than Medicaid approved ways.
Right. And so Medicaid says, hey, we're not going to allow you to do that. And so people come in routinely and they say, hey, well, I gave less than 90,000, so it's okay. I have to say, actually, it's not. That's a gift tax rule. With Medicaid, all about gifting anything, trying to get eligible for Medicaid. And so those oftentimes create issues. Fortunately, there is a piece of that rule that says you can't give away assets within 5 years of applying for Medicaid, but the purpose of the gift is for getting eligible for Medicaid. So we have had success using affidavits explaining that it hasn't been for the purpose of getting Medicaid. As an example, someone that has, I don't know, $200,000, and they gave the grandchild $5,000 for graduating college or something like that. It didn't really get them a lot closer to getting eligible for Medicaid when the limit's $2,000.
Yeah.
Right. So, in those circumstances, we've had some success doing that. In the circumstances like I was talking about, where people actually give away substantial assets to try to get ahead of it, and kind of that creates a problem. What we can do is oftentimes to turn the gift and then protect it in the way that Medicaid permits. So there are all types of different ways in Florida that we can get people eligible for Medicaid, protecting what assets they have. And so what Medicaid says is, if you give, if I was going for Medicaid here soon and I gave you $100,000, that would be a problem, and I wouldn't be able to get Medicaid for like 10 months or something. But if you gave me the money back,
and then
considering I didn't go
hopefully you didn't spend it all
at Millennia,
or you could, in theory, take out like a second on the house or whatever to get that money to be able to give it back to me. There are ways that we could get it transferred right back to you, but then potentially pay off that loan or whatever. If that's what you had to do to get the money, that then allow me to be eligible for Medicaid. So there are ways of what they call curing the gift, like fixing that problem. But of course, it takes more work. It's more effort. It will delay approvals. It's a much more, I would say, difficult sort of process to go through than just not gifting in the first place and just kind of doing it right.
Okay. So the bottom line is, if somebody is planning on making those larger gifts to their kids or grandkids around the holidays, it's a good idea to not only talk to a CPA, but also an elder law attorney,
Yeah, for
just
sure.
to get clarity on, what the horizon may look like for them.
Mhm.
Um, in addition to getting documents in place, having those difficult conversations, knowing where things are. I think it's also a time of year where people are starting to notice when there might be a decline happening
Mhm.
of their loved ones, because it's one of the only times where everybody is together and for an extended period for a lot of families.
Yeah.
Like my family lives up in the Midwest and I'm down here in Florida. So seeing them at the holidays, that's kind of when it's a check-in, like, oh, Dad, you're moving a little slow,
Mhm.
or Mom, you've asked me the same question over and over.
Yeah.
So how do you handle something like that from an elder law attorney perspective?
Yeah, and I think that those are the times where you just have those crucial conversations.
That's a tongue twister.
Yeah, crucial conversations.
See, yeah, we're not even gonna go there.
But yeah, so I think it's very, I don't think most people aren't aware when they slow down. I mean, my dad, he's 70, he's about 74, and he'll say, "Oh, I know I'm not as sharp as I once was." He'll admit that, and my mom probably a little too proud to admit that yet, but I think
She's the one keeping all the secrets from Geoff.
That's right. That's true.
Where all the assets are.
Fair point.
But I think most people do know that, and if it's coming from the place of concern and care and wanting to help, I think those are reasonable conversations to have. I think, like you say, it can definitely be more stark during the holidays. Last night I was on the phone with a friend from high school, and he lives in California now. His mom is here, and his sister lives here. And I was talking with him about his mom. She went to the hospital. She has some dementia. He's like, like maybe moderate dementia. He's like, honestly, my wife talks to her more than I do. I'm not really sure. But I think it's not too terrible. And so then I spoke with his sister later on because he wasn't really sure about the care needs. I talked to his sister, and she's like, Mom can't feed herself. She has aphasia. She can't really talk anymore.
Very stark, differences in terms of
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you do some of those things that, around the holidays when you finally get together, you're like, wow, things have changed significantly since I last saw them. And so, I think it just highlights the importance of trying to check in and keep tabs as our loved ones age. Because, and the one thing I will say is his sister did respond to me. She said, it's been very quick to decline. And so, 3 months ago, maybe it wasn't like this.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden now, she's going to need 24-hour care. And, it's a sad situation for sure. But, he had no clue.
Yeah.
He's like, well, my wife talks to her pretty regularly, so I think everything's fine. Not at all.
That's hard to hear.
Yeah.
And it may be a good benchmark, too, to see if there is rapid decline between Thanksgiving and the December holidays.
Mhm.
Because if you're getting together back to back like that and something has drastically changed from one to the other, then it might be time to suggest, visiting a doctor and getting a formal diagnosis.
Absolutely.
Because I think we see this a lot. There's a major difference between a senior moment and, a true loss of memory. Someone described it to me once that if you lose your keys, that's one thing, but if you forget what your keys are for,
Yeah.
then it's time to, seek out that professional diagnosis.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts as we head into the holiday season? Because although we like to think that all families are getting together and happy and joyful, there are also, complicated family situations that we see in our practice. So, any final thoughts about just the conversations that will be had over the next several weeks?
No, honestly, I think one of our team members has said to me a number of times, and I love it, but clear as kind. And being open and honest with your loved ones, I think, is in a lot of cases the better, more loving thing to do than just sweeping it under the rug and pretending that everything was fine. You're setting yourself up for some real heartache and hardship when you don't have these conversations, the planning doesn't get done, and now you're there struggling to pick up the pieces without the proper legal tools or understanding even what's there. So as difficult as it may be to kind of say, hey, maybe we need to talk about what you've done for the future and what your plan looks like. I'd say that it's really more of a challenge to not do that because you're really potentially subjecting them and yourselves to a lot more risk and difficulty by just ignoring it.
And it's always better to talk about planning than politics at the dinner table.
That's the truth, especially in these days.
At least it's an easier topic than that. All right. Thanks, Geoff. Thank you all for watching and listening. We appreciate it. And we will see you on the next episode of Elder Law Out Loud.